Hey, good morning with Teresa. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Doing great. Another beautiful Friday, and we're here with another podcast for Foundations of Wellness, and I've got a really awesome topic. So, for the viewers out there who really don't understand the power of mindset or the power of their thoughts, this is going to be a really good episode for people to tune into. And so, I'm really excited to just question you and learn myself. And yeah,
It's one of my favorite topics. It's actually become probably my favorite topic of late because it's a something that I'm really fully embracing in the last like 6 weeks. I have it's been a journey. Mindset and becoming thinking new things and becoming a new person has been part of my journey and part of what got me to where I am today. I'm a much better version of myself than I was, like who I am is still the same. Like I'm still me. I love, my favorite color is still the same. My favorite flower is still the same, but who I represent, present myself to the world is a much different version because I've changed my thoughts and because I've changed the way I look at things and the way I approach, just different things in my life, including my health, including, it was a really big shift when it came to shifting my own health journey when I started looking at things differently and really working on things that were inside of me, working on things that were in my heart and things that were in my mind, things that I was thinking, the thoughts
Mhm.
that I was thinking every day. There's a scripture that talks about out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks. And the things that we set our mind to, the things that we put our thought to every day, those often either start in our heart or begin in our mind and end up in our heart. So we got to work on both things at the same time. It's definitely changes the landscape of, how we show up in the world every day.
100%. And just as a brief introduction for the viewers, if they're new here to the channel, which if you are, please like and subscribe to the channel. We got a lot of phenomenal content to educate you with. And this is nurse practitioner Teresa Greco. She's conventionally trained as a nurse practitioner. However, she's also more functional medicine guided, and she's a traditional naturopath as well. And yeah, it has a holistic, integrative approach on just the whole person, the whole being. And so that's what really separates her expertise from just going out to, the conventional primary care physician. She wants to look at the entire human body as it relates to your health and see where the holes are that we can help plug and fill. And mindset is one of those, especially when it comes to like mental, emotional traumas or just, anything that deals with how we were raised and how we've carried those conditioning into our life and how they kind of developed and molded who we are today, because it does play a lot.
Yeah.
But just for the basis here, define mindset. So what is mindset? How does it differ from personality or attitude? And maybe give us some types of mindset, if you will.
Yeah. So when you talk about personality, for instance, typically we could think of someone as being, charismatic and gregarious or shy and reserved, We can talk about how they're introverted, so they draw their energy from solitude or being in just a circle of a handful of people, whereas an extrovert draws their energy from being around people. That those things are all part of who we are, but our mindset, it's really the things that we put our mind to, the things that we think of.
Mhm.
So taking note of the thoughts that cross through our minds, especially in the times when we're all by ourselves, when we're doing the dishes or folding the laundry, things that we did, taking a shower, making the bed in the morning, things that we're just kind of like routinely going through. What thoughts are going through our head? What thoughts come up when somebody cuts us off in traffic? What thoughts come up when I stub my toe on a chair? What thoughts come up when my dog chases after a baby bunny? Because that actually happened yesterday. What thoughts come up when I realized, oh, I overdrew the bank account because I forgot to put that one thing in my ledger to remind myself, because like all the things that we don't expect, or all the things that happen unexpectedly. We get a phone call and our kid just got detention because they punched somebody else in the face, like what goes through our head? Like what do we tell ourselves every day? So what thoughts do we have Are they reactive thoughts? Are they responsive thoughts? But also, what is our self-talk? Like, how are we talking to ourselves? Do we say, when you make a mistake in your checkbook and then you end up overdrafting because you forgot to take something, do you go, "Ah, stupid, what you do so dumb, can't you get it right?" Or we're like, "Oh, no, no worries. Okay, well, it's, better experience next time. We won't do that again. Now I learned something." How are we talking to ourselves? And how are we relating? Like, how are we judging other people? Are we looking at someone through with a mindset that is compassionate and loving and kind and caring? Or are we looking at someone with judgment and resentment and bitterness? And, those are the things that are the feelings in our heart, the things that drive our thoughts. So mindset really encompasses a bunch of stuff, but it's basically, like, if I could put it in one sentence, it's the thoughts that we think every day, and like, as a whole, how are those thoughts driven? Are they driven from a place of positivity, from a place of negativity?
Mhm.
Do they bring life, or do they take away from life? Do they withdraw from us? And also,
It's
and then where do they show up from? Good things in our heart, or not so
right.
good things?
Absolutely, because our thoughts, can become feelings, and our feelings can become actions, and that's going to manifest in both a positive or negative or neutral way, determining or depending on how we think. And, if I think about going bowling, I'm not going to go fishing if my mind is thought on going bowling, right?
Right.
So I'm not going to go fishing.
Yeah.
But in the same way, the self-talk that we have with ourselves is equally important, just because, like you mentioned, calling ourselves names, it's like our body is kind of secretly eavesdropping on you to hear what you have to say about yourself. And
All
a
the
lot of
time.
times it's more so just about having a sense of awareness of the present moment of what's going through your mind so you can understand, because essentially we're just programming ourselves. And with the number and the amount of thoughts that we have on a given day, which is innumerable, really, it's a ton,
Thousands of thoughts in the course of a day.
thousands of thoughts. And how many of those are repetitive thoughts from the day prior?
Yep.
And how often can this stack up against you if you're just burying yourself in a negative mindset? And
Yep.
so, we have a growth or a fixed mindset, and oftentimes people don't realize the mindset that they have, because they're just not aware. And there comes a time of responsibility of when you are aware of it, it's like, oh, wow, how do I begin to reprogram the circuitry up here so that I can now have this, kind of newfound outlook on life? As you were saying, with being compassionate toward people, or the thoughts that come up whenever we stub our toe or get cut off in traffic. It's easy to be like, "Oh, you idiot," or "You moron." I do it quite often sometimes, and my wife is there to quickly correct me and be like, "Hey," I'm like, "You're right. Dial back, reframe that." And that's the important thing, is being aware to reframe what we just said. And a lot of times, especially going through, and this will lead into my next topic here on the impact of mindset on life outcomes, is, really, if we're not reframing this up here, there's really no change that's going to become in our output. And that oftentimes we can say, well, I don't want to be broke, or I don't want to, there's always something like I don't want. And so oftentimes when we preface a sentence with an I don't want, we tend to avoid that as much as possible. And
Except
when
that that's the thing that we actually attract to ourselves.
Mhm.
There's a couple of laws, universal laws. There's like 7 to 12 universal laws, and then there's laws that very, very similarly correlate that we can see throughout scripture. And the law of attraction is sort of like the law of sowing and reaping. What you put out, what you focus your attention on is what you will draw to yourself. That's the law of attraction. If I say, "Oh, I can't afford that," or, "Oh, I'm so sick and tired of being broke." Well, now you're going to get more sick and tired and more broke because you just focus your attention on that. So you're going to get, because it's like God says, "Okay, that's what you want, because that's where you're focusing your attention. Okay, you'll get more sick, tired, and broke." It's like, okay, is that really where we want to put our attention to? Because we don't want to attract those things. So,
Mhm.
what I've instead, and I had to put this into practice, I do this every day, but when I go to pay my bills, for instance, instead of going, oh my gosh, I hate paying bills, or this is like the worst thing it's an exercise I go through the beginning of every month. At the end of the month, I get all the bills set up in my checkbook, and then and then the beginning of the next month, I balance the checkbook. And as I'm doing that, I can either say, oh, I hate paying bills. Oh my gosh, there's so many bills. Oh my gosh, I hate doing this. I hate doing that. Or I could go, you know what? I'm so thankful and grateful that I have more than enough, that I always have enough to pay all my bills. My bank accounts are overflowing. I'm never in lack. I'm never, I always have more than I need. Even if the reality in the world that we live in may be not that, if we are thankful and we set our attention, the Bible talks about setting our attention on the things above. So if we are setting our attention on those things that are good, lovely, positive, of good report, think on those things. That's what Philippians talks about. Those are the things that we're just going to, then that is what we're going to attract. And, the gratitude that we have is going to draw the things that we want to be more thankful for and to have more gratitude for. So it's very, it's not how most people are innately wired to think that way, because it's our upbringing. It's how, how our parents raised, how they thought and how their parents thought. Most people don't have an awareness that that's what they're doing. And then they wonder why things keep happening, and this is like a repetitive process throughout their family or throughout their life, is because they're repeating what they've learned as a young child. It's gotten ingrained in them, and they don't have an awareness that there's anything different that they can do. But once you have that awareness, now you are empowered to do something different, to make that change in your life, so that you can choose to change your thoughts, and then you can teach your children to change those thoughts and the things that they say and the things that they focus on, the things that they think about, just like you're doing that with your own life. And then you're empowered to do something differently, and you can break that cycle.
Absolutely. And you gave a lot of consequences there of having a negative or a fixed mindset. And I think that a lot of people, like you mentioned, everybody has their own unique individual experience based on how they're raised. So at any given time, you can talk to someone from a different generation and they'll all have a different perspective on their own outcome, if you will, with their mindset. Take finance as an example. If you had grandparents that grew up during the Great Depression, you might have people who are more frugal, more of a tendency to save because they had, lack and scarcity, which is a mindset in of itself of holding on to things, and a fear of letting go because you might not ever have it again.
Yeah. If
You
you
might
were
have,
on the side of the depression where it really affected, if you were among the elite that didn't harm, and you were actually benefiting, that would be a different story for you. But yeah, my parents grew up during the depression. My parents, grew up in poverty. They had rations, and I'm older than you, so that was my parents, not my grandparents. So that was very much, the mindset was a scarcity mindset. It was definitely something that I had to learn to overcome, because I saw how it affected me in raising my kids. My kids are all grown now. So I have one of my children, I actually two of my children, I are have come out of that and are, definitely have a different mindset. But two of my children, three of my children, I would say, haven't had that realization, or just becoming aware of it, because it was just how I taught them. And so as I'm learning a new way and a new way of thinking, and I'm having these conversations with my adult children now, to say, hey, let's look at things a different way. Let's
Mhm.
change our perspective. Let's move to the other side of the room, and let's look at it from a different vantage point,
Mhm.
because it
100%.
definitely can affect. And I was just I one of the things I thought while we were talking too is, this is not, like, when we talk about gratitude, we talk about the things that we focus our attention to. Having a lot does not necessarily necessitate, like, having an abundance of things in our physical world. Like, say I have $1 million in my bank account. That doesn't equate to happiness. There's lots of happy people that have $0 in their bank account. There's also lots of people that have millions of dollars in their bank account. They're not very happy. So happiness does not equate what's going on in our physical world. Happiness is an attitude in our heart. And it's a
Mhm.
decision that we make to be grateful and thankful and joyful, regardless of what our circumstances look like. So, again, the Bible talks about, I've learned in all things, whether in abundance or in lack, to be thankful, to be joyful, to be
Right.
grateful. And that's really, and I will say, having walked through times in my life where, like I was homeless with kids, and I didn't have a lot. I was a single mom with 5 kids for a while, and it was challenging. I had to choose the attitude of my heart. I had to choose to not focus on that and to be grateful and thankful no matter what was going on in my life, which was
Mhm.
not an easy thing to do all the time. Sure, did it make it easier when I started to get, when I completed my degrees and then was making more money and was able to pay my bills more easily? Yeah, of course it did. But regardless, I chose to be happy and grateful and thankful, during the times where my life was a struggle, and now further down the street, down the road with all the learning and the experience and the things like that. Now the circumstances are just different. Now my struggles are different, but I still have choices to make every day. I still have a choice to decide that I'm going to let something overtake me and really deplete me of my joy and my energy and all the things, where I can focus my attention and my heart towards being grateful no matter what happens in my
Yeah,
life.
100%. I know that I too have experienced all these hardships, and everyone will, because the Bible says that when the storms of life come, it doesn't say if, so there's no exemption for people. We're all going to experience trials and tribulations and hardships in life. It's really how we respond to those. And I always know that when I go through hard times personally, a book besides the Bible that I love to turn to is by Viktor Frankl, Man's Search for Meaning.
Yeah, it's a
Some of
good.
the It's a really good book. It really, really is, because this is a guy who is I think, a
That's for the
psychologist,
Holocaust.
and he was the Holocaust at the Auschwitz camp, which was one of the worst ones there. And he saw so much, but he also, because of his background in psychology, took note of the behavior and some of the quotes that he had said from the book that kind of made an impact on me were, everything can be taken from a man, but one thing, the last of human freedoms, to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances,
Yep.
to choose one's own way. And so
Yep.
we have a choice there. And Chuck Swindoll wrote something very similar, and I don't remember it, but you can look up him and the power of attitude of your circumstances. And if you're just tuning in, what we're talking about is mindset, and specifically how the impact on life outcomes our mindset has. And it's really important because long ago I was told, mindset is the key to success. As silly and as simple as that phrase sounds, I didn't really know what that meant. It was just almost mind-boggling to me. And I was like, what do you mean the key to success is mindset? Like, no, the success is like having a lot of money. And it's like, no. You define your worth is attached to success, equating to having a lot of money, but that's not really what it means. People can have that definition if they choose, and they're always going to be chasing after something that's very hard to grasp. When we can be successful as a parent, a father, an individual, the way we overcome. And that's again another quote by Viktor Frankl, where he says that when we are no longer able to change a situation, but we are challenged to change ourselves. And it's
Mhm.
so important because those who have a why to live can bear with almost any how. Another quote of his. And you shared with so many, personal influences and how you are able to adapt and cope through those circumstances. And a lot of it is practicing gratitude.
Yeah.
And the bare minimum, sometimes it's really just that, just being able to dig deep and be thankful for what you do have versus focusing on what you don't have. And yeah, there's so
100%.
many, it's really hard, and it can be hard. It takes a lot of awareness of being in the present. It takes a lot of focus and effort and energy. And that's probably why a lot of people don't do this, is because of the work it takes. Like when I first started out working with my mind and just trying to become aware of the thoughts that were going in and out of here. It was back when I was in my dump truck and I ran a small, I was an owner operator and I ran a small little business of hauling material around my Metroplex to various contractors. The beginning of my day and the end of my day when I got into my truck and when I would get out of my truck. So I would start off with an app called Headspace
Mhm.
and I would start with 3 minutes because 3 minutes of sitting still with no distractions, no cell phone, no scrolling, no nothing, no music was so hard. And it eventually turned
Right.
into it eventually turned into 20 minutes. And the more I found so much appreciation, and the more I became more aware, and the more I became more present with the now, and I was able to make connections of why thoughts were coming and where they were coming from, and if I would resonate with them, if I aligned with them. And Paul says in Second Corinthians that we're to take all thoughts captive and make them obedient to Christ, those that exalt themselves above the knowledge and power of God. And so you could literally see where these thoughts are coming from. And oftentimes they're a biological response to, uncertainty, unknown, fear, right? And how do these mindsets, if you want, affect our health? If you want to explain how these mindsets can really affect our health for the negative, because I know a lot of people who struggle with autoimmunity, Hashimoto's, lupus, Crohn's, or whatever. They make an identity around it. Can you talk about how that in of itself can affect people for the negative?
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. So, I've shared this before, but we are not just the physical body that we live in. That's our earth suit, right? And our spirit is what gives us life. And our soul is our mind, our will, our emotions. That's how we express ourselves, how we think, and all the things. And they often, I mean, they all the time, not often, they all the time overlap. We cannot separate those parts of who we are. So I will tell people, we can have a physical manifestation of an emotional event, or we can have an emotional response to a physical event. So if I go stub my toe really hard, it could be like I could have tears in my eyes. That's an emotional response to a physical stimulus. There's something called Takotsubo or broken heart syndrome. I've had patients, I've taken care of patients where they had such loss, sudden loss, that they literally looked like they were having a heart attack. They had crushing chest pain and radiating to their jaw and down their arm, and their EKG looked like they were having a heart attack, and their coronary arteries were fine. Everything was fine. There was no blockages. That is a physical manifestation of an emotional stimulus. So we see this all the time. And people who live with chronic disease, no matter what it is, again, I have learned this. So, what we give our focus and attention to is what we often draw to ourselves and manifest more in our life, have it happen more often. There is, I should have picked it up, but there's a book I have. I keep it, on my little bookshelf over here, and it's a lady, Louise Hay, who outlined, where are some physical symptoms and how do they present themselves in our emotions or even in our thoughts. And Chinese medicine does this, Ayurvedic medicine does this. They've known this for like 5,000 years in those practices, where, for instance, liver issues will often correspond to anger because, we process life. Our liver's like our washing machine. And if we can't process something, emotionally, it can lead to frustration and anger. You know, Gallbladder is often represented with the emotion of resentment. Well, our gallbladder holds bile. Bile is what breaks down fatty acids. So if you think about it, if you're resenting something, you're not able to really break it down. You're holding on to it. And if I can go over and over and all these different things. And, people look at there are some people that I work with that they're like, yeah, I get it. I understand it already. And there's some people that kind of look like me, a deer in headlights, and like, yeah, right. Except that over and over and over, we will go through the things that they're going on physically within them. And then I'll say, do you understand, this? If I make this statement to you, does this resonate with you? Do you agree with this? And I'll maybe read them something and I'll say, do you understand that is a physical manifestation of what's going on in your thyroid or whatever? And so it all the time, there's all the time an overlap in the mind and the body, and how we stay stuck. So when you're dealing, and I, like autoimmune is the body turning on itself. A lot of people with autoimmune, direct their negative energy towards themselves. I was one of them. I struggled with autoimmune for years and years and years, but I had a lot of self-deprecating thoughts too. I didn't really like myself. I didn't appreciate myself. I definitely didn't love myself. I cared for my physical body. I never like let myself go where I wouldn't like bathe or whatever. But did I always do what was best for me? No, I didn't. Because I didn't love myself. That's autoimmune. A lot of people with autoimmune, that's what happens. And when somebody first told me that, it really ticked me off. I was like, how dare you judge me like that? Da, 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 da. And I was like, how dare you? But then I went home after that conversation, after I got done being PO'd. I went home and I started thinking about it, and I was like, you know, there's some truth in that. And actually, I wasn't when I went home that day. It was like after I mulled over it for a couple of days. But even then, I thought, I don't want to do anything about it. Like it took me years to be able to really, really seriously consider that that was part of what was going on. And when I started to nurture and love me and see me in a different way and care about me in a different way, and also focus on, the traumas and the things from my past, it was all part of that all fed into a lot of the physical symptoms that I have, where I don't like really, I like a lot of the physical things that I used to have go on in my body, that I would experience in my body, pain and extreme fatigue and things like, just like no stamina and things like that. Like I almost never have those anymore, hardly ever, because I have worked so much on healing, the past traumas in my life, working on my mindset, working on my love for myself, working on feeding my soul and caring for myself in a much different way. So yes, do I watch what I eat? Of course I do. Do I make sure I get physical exercise? Yes. Do I make sure that I take nutritional supplements? Yes. I do all those things too. But if you do all those things and that's all you do, that's not enough, because that's not you. All those things are just taking care of your physical body. They're not really dealing with your heart. They're not really dealing with your mind. And they're definitely not dealing with how you look at yourself and your mindset, and also the vision of who you are. And I heard somebody say something recently that really it stuck with me. She said, the definition of suffering, we often think suffering is the things that happen around us, in the outside, like our difficult circumstances. Maybe, we lose a loved one, or our house gets foreclosed, or we lose our job, or things like that, loss in our life, and the things that really we struggle with externally. But she said, really, suffering is more like that we don't deal with the things that are on the inside of us, because some of the stuff that happens on the outside world, we don't have any control over. But a lot of the stuff that happens on the external world, like we don't have any control over whether a loved one passes away or not. But sometimes, maybe we lost our job because we weren't showing up as the best version of ourselves, and we were doing things that were kind of perpetuating poor performance or whatever. I mean, not always. Again, there's circumstances where
Sure.
companies downsize and things like that. But sometimes there's things that we have that suffer in our external world is because we are directing our energy towards something in a negative way. Like we talked about, the law of manifestation, law of cause and effect, the law of attraction, where we draw things to ourselves that aren't beneficial. So if I think all the time, if all I do is talk to myself in a bad way, in a self-deprecating way, and all I do is put myself down, do you think I'm going to show up as a kind person every day? Do you think I'm going to show up as a high performing person in my workplace? Do you think I'm going to show up as somebody who thinks happy thoughts and loving thoughts towards that person who cut me off? No,
Mm-mm.
I'm not. I'm not going to show up as the best version of myself at all if I can't even start with loving myself. Because everything that we do for other people has to come out of the abundance and the overflow of what we do for ourselves. And so, we have to learn to nurture and love ourselves. And so then, when you think about going back to what you said about the chronic illness kind of thing, if that becomes our identity, that is actually not who we are. Like, I am not Lyme disease. I am not autoimmune disease. I am not, let's see, I am not diabetes. I am not high blood pressure. That's not who I am. That's something I deal with, something I struggle with, or something that somebody has labeled me with. Who
Right.
I am is not what I have going on inside of me or some label that got put on me. And so if I choose to not focus my attention on the external label or even my physical symptoms, because they are real, like, because that's what ticked me off. I was like, my symptoms are real. I really hurt every day. I really can't get out of bed every day because I really did. I was like bedbound for a while, so it's not that we don't, that what we're experiencing, it's not to invalidate the things that we actually do feel. Pain is real. We really do have it. I had migraines almost daily for that were debilitating. I had vertigo so bad I couldn't even, my eyes would flutter back and forth and I couldn't even like move. So it's not to say that those didn't happen. I really had those. But what I'm saying is if all I do is focus my attention on that, or on the label that somebody called it or gave me, and I don't focus on my gratitude. Lord, I'm thankful that I have a husband who loves me, a dog that loves me and is happy to see me every day. I'm thankful for a house, and I'm thankful for a country where we still have our freedoms, even though they may not be as great as it was 100 years ago. I'm thankful that I have, you know, coffee in the morning. I'm thankful that I have, a beautiful sunny day and baby bunnies nesting in my herb garden. I'm thankful. And it just, I tell my patients all the time, I need you to stop focusing on, in fact, you can stop taking every supplement I give you. Just stop taking them. And I want you to every day get up and write down 5 things that you're thankful for every day. And if all you can do is do the same 5 every day, then start there. I'd like you to do 5 different things every day because I'm sure if you looked hard enough, you could find 5 things in your life that you're thankful for, different things every day. Thankful that the lights turn on when I flip the switch. I'm thankful that the chair I'm sitting on supports me. I'm thankful, like silly, like just find something because it's a practice that it starts out by just like building a muscle, like we go to the gym and we lift weights, but eventually becomes something we do without thinking. Like right now, I can get in my car, I can turn the key on, and I can, go somewhere without having to think, oh, what do I do now to see? I got to push up for my turn signal, go this way, and push down for my turns. No, I learned all that when I was 16. That was a long time ago. I don't have to think about driving anymore. The mechanics of driving, I know how to do it. Practicing gratitude and having an attitude that is grateful and a heart full of thanks is something that we may not be comfortable with at first. It may not be something that we just naturally do, but the more we practice it, the more we are able to do it with ease, and it just kind of overflows and it starts to change us. It changes who we are. I do this every morning, every night. I write down 10 things I'm thankful for. I'm so happy and grateful now that I have a life that's overflowing with abundance. I'm so thankful that my faith is growing every single day, that I can believe for more and more to come to pass in my life every day. I'm so thankful for, the spring weather and the sun that's shining. I pick things every day. I'm so happy and I'm so grateful. So I feel like it is like the thing that just raises you up and causes you to just be raise above the circumstances in your life and raise above the pain or the things that we're going through and raises us up to where we have a greater appreciation for what we really do have and changes us. And it makes us who we are. It literally took healing my past traumas and changing my heart literally took away my physical pain that I feel. And if I start to feel physical pain in my body, I immediately check in and go, okay, where am I? Where's something offline in my heart? What am I thinking that doesn't look like love, joy, peace, kindness, patience, gentleness, goodness, meekness, and self-control. All the fruits of the spirit. If I start to feel anything in my body, I immediately go, where am I not lining up in my spirit and my soul? So I just said a whole bunch there.
A lot at me to unpack there for a moment. Some key things that you'd mentioned. There's a lot of great stuff. One of the very first comments you said early on was about having the autoimmunity and being at the doctor and how dare you? There was a reactive statement there to the doctor's response.
Yeah.
And it wasn't, and most people have these reactive type of moments,
Yeah.
just like that, and where we just instantaneously react to something. We don't stop to hear, internalize it, and really process it. Now you did, right? It took you a while to actually think on it, like, wow, do I really like it?
Yeah.
It sunk into you. And I think for a lot of people, like in AA, alcoholism, or any addiction, step one is admitting to yourself that you're powerless to the addiction and that, to overcome denial, not be in denial about you having a problem. And we can deny to ourselves all the time in these reactive states, and we just don't want to believe it. We kind of push it down and we're bearing it more and more. And all that really does is just put up more walls for us to have to dismantle to get to that root issue. Because all of this stuff that manifests is the surfacing of what's on the inside. And it's just kind of finally bullying over,
Hmm.
or we're just so reactive.
Yeah.
And you'd mentioned a lot of things about practical techniques that people can do to help cultivate. Well, we didn't really touch much of cultivating a growth mindset, but you allured to it coming out of a fixed mindset. And I know that shifting from a fixed to a growth mindset is just having that awareness of when you're told something from a doctor who labels you with whatever. There's a great book, very small. It's by Dodie Osteen from Lakewood Church down in South Texas in Houston area, who had cancer. And she details her journey about how she just didn't accept what the doctors had told her. She was given 6 months to live, and she's still alive to this day. And this was in the 80s, I believe.
Yes, it was. I remember that.
She's still alive today, cancer free, and she doesn't say that her journey was easy. And there's often times where it was very hard for her to go through her days, but she would pray for other people who were struggling with conditions as well, and that would help her to keep pushing forward. And there were times that she would say the devil would whisper in her ear, or she would hear something like say, "You'll never be able to fit in that dress again," or "You see that picture of your dead husband? That's going to be you two here soon." And she would have to truthfully take those thoughts, say, all right, this isn't what I want to be. This is not, I'm not going to accept that. I refuse to challenge that. I'm gonna take that thought, throw it away, and I'm gonna reframe it into what I'm looking to become. That's cancer free. I'm gonna live a life because God hasn't given me a spirit of fear, but of power, sound mind, and of love. And I'm not gonna allow that into me. I reject and rebuke that. And it starts with that awareness. We have to start with understanding where these thoughts come from, how we react, and why. Why did it trigger us to react rather than internalize and respond?
Mm-hmm.
And then how is it that we can go on to do something different? Because insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. So if
So
we've always done the same thing
yeah.
in our reaction and are expecting a different result and don't get it, well, then maybe we need to go back to the drawing board and reassess.
So recently I did a teaching at a Bible study that I go to, and I actually, like, about 2 weeks after that, I thought, you know what? I'm going to revise what I just said. So we were talking about, transforming our mind, renewing, taking every thought captive and renewing our mind. The Bible talks about renewing our mind with the word. So, and whatever like I said, whatever things are lovely and pure and of good report, think on those things. So, I was talking to what I taught on was like drawing, when we say something or we have a thought, does it look like the fruits of the spirit? Does it look like love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, gentleness, goodness, meekness, self-control? If it does not look like that, if that's our measuring stick, if that's our standard of excellence, then take that thought and flip it and make it turn it over and make it something opposite.
Mhm.
And that's where I stopped. So that's good. But what happens sometimes is we keep having those thoughts over and over, and it becomes laborious where we just are like, oh my gosh, I can never get over this. Where I realized what we need to do instead is recognize the thought, flip it over onto its head, and then think about who I would be. What would I be like if this new thought, this beautiful new thought, were true? And then hold on to a moment of gratitude for that. So if if, let's see, if my thought was, man, I cannot stop eating those stinking chocolate chip cookies. And I flip it over and I go, like, I'm thankful that I'm gonna, because that's like words of self-judgment. Like it wouldn't, that doesn't look like love towards myself at all. So if instead, if I flip it over and say, I don't, I'm going to choose to not eat that, make those unhealthy choices. Don't stop there because that's really still like you're still striving to make something happen. What if
Right.
you then took it and put it into your heart? Because, our heart, our thoughts and our mind settle into our hearts, and that's what becomes our beliefs. So, what if I instead held on to a moment of gratitude and said, I'm so thankful that I am health, that every choice I make is a healthy one. I'm so thankful that I choose healthy food. I'm so thankful that I am able to freely move away from the things that don't serve me, that don't build my body up. And I'm so thankful that I have a habit of choosing good food and just feel that moment of gratitude.
Mhm.
If the more we do that, because then it's not just a thought, then it's connecting the thought with the emotion, the gratitude that we feel, and
Right.
that's like the secret sauce. It's adding that, taking the imagination, that thought that's in the imagination, connecting it with that positive feeling of gratitude. That's what actually changes, and then we will start not only will we have those negative thoughts less and less and less, we'll start to actually draw to ourselves those good choices more and more and more. It'll become easier and easier and easier for us to just not eat the chocolate chip cookies and choose to eat, what I just had today was a yes bar with, you know, it was high plant protein, high fiber, grain free, low carb, it was all good stuff for me. It was as good as a chocolate chip cookie, except it was good for me. So, I'm just using that as a current example of something that happened right now. But it'll be easier and easier and easier. Those chocolate chip cookies will tempt us less and less and less. We'll continue to do more and more and more healthy things,
Right.
it will become the thing that we want instead of doing things and being someone who doesn't make those choices. It gives us less of a reason then to really like down ourselves. And we have more of a reason to go, man, congratulations, Teresa. You just did an amazing thing today. Look at that. You're a rock star. And then our self-love goes up and we become a better version of ourselves. And then, it just keeps perpetuating into this like an abundance kind of
Mhm.
style instead of a lifestyle of lack and of, scarcity and poverty and things like that. So
100%.
yeah.
Absolutely. I was just looking at some notes from a week's class I'd taken from a class I'd taken a couple of weeks ago on just understanding some do-it-yourself tips and tricks. Oh, I wouldn't say tips and tricks, but habits that we can do to help ourselves overcome these limited or fixed mindsets. And what you were saying there just ties into, okay, we're trying to focus on the positive and the gratitude of things. And we're trying to align ourselves using the supportive evidence of the actions that we want to take to change our feelings from whether it's negative or pessimistic to positive and optimistic. And so we can do that. And an easy way is like as you're going through your gratitude journal and your journaling, because this is a extremely important process to do if you want to help fix your fixed mindset is by gratitude journaling in the morning when you get up and then mind dumping on the paper at night. So that way all that stuff gets out of here on your paper and then you reflect the next day in your gratitude journaling. But we want to reinforce these feelings and these thoughts with positive traits so that we can line them up with who we really are. Another thing that you mentioned earlier was about not loving yourself. And the Bible tells us to love God with all our heart, mind, strength, and soul, and then to love your neighbor as yourself. It's very hard to love other people when you hate
Yeah.
yourself.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
In Proverbs 18:27, I believe it is, says that there's life and death in the power of the tongue. And so we can speak word curses over ourselves just as much as we can speak them over our spouse or children or strangers or other people. And so we have to really become more aware. The key word in this whole, I think, podcast is the awareness of what's going on in here and what we have going on with our self-talk and our conversations despite our circumstances. Because remember, life is going to happen. We're going to have the flat tire. We're going to have situations where we might get laid off, or we might lose a job, or we might have, bad things just do happen. You can't control that. But what you can control is how resilient we are with our mindset in that given situation. And that kind of ties into the unknown and uncertainty. Right now, even if you are successful and you have $1 million in the bank, you still don't know what tomorrow is going to bring,
Mhm.
despite you being a quote millionaire, right?
Yeah.
So the unknown and uncertain is there for everybody. We don't know if we're going to wake up tomorrow. We don't know if, the deal is going to go through with whatever deal we're making with a client, with another acquisition tomorrow or next week. We don't know if we're going to make it to work or if we're going to be in a traffic jam. So there's still unknown. Unknown is normal. We don't need to fear the unknown and the uncertain. We just better prepare mentally. A really good acronym for the word fear, FEAR. I got two of them. One is we can look at fear as it's a false appearance or false evidence appearing real
Yep.
because it's a natural biological response, oftentimes to our thought. Psychology in reports say that 85% of our worries never come to pass. Let that sink in. 85% of your worries never come to pass. So really think about some of the hardships that you've had to go through.
Yeah.
Did the world stop turning? Did the world end? No. You were able to pick yourself up and keep pushing forward. You got through it. And you can anchor into those times to help you kind of be more stoic as you continue to persevere in that mindset of resilience. The other acronym for fear is, hey, we can face everything and rise.
That's
And
good.
that's how I want to choose. Remember, my choice to choose how I'm going to approach what life throws at me. I'm
Mhm.
going to face it head on. And failure has to have a new definition. Failures are opportunities for yourself to learn and grow.
Mhm.
You don't, everyone's going to experience setbacks, hardships, and failures. But failures are such great learning opportunities because they teach us how to be better. So
Mhm.
we have to kind of redefine that word failure. And a great book on that is Failing Forward by John Maxwell.
Mhm.
Really, really good book. And when we have the belief, we have the feeling, we have the behavior, now we can imagine what we want to become as we walk into that new identity, and we can back it up with evidence of our new formed actions to support that empowered belief. And these are some of the tips and the strategies that you can do to help yourself as you begin this process and journey of renewing a fixed mindset and going toward a growth mindset, because it takes time. If you were conditioned verbally and through things you saw as a child, 20 years up into your adult life and greater, well, it's going to take some time for you to rewire the circuitry up here to have this kind of newfound growth mindset. And it takes one step, and that's just the action of deciding today to choose to not be so reactive, but becoming more aware of what's going on up here.
Yeah.
Once you take that step, it's a whole new adventure of endless opportunities. And that's really all we're doing. We're just seeing life through the lens of positive opportunities and challenges. And how am I going to overcome these obstacles? It's great when we have problems that present themselves because it's now, how can I overcome this problem? What do I get to do to strategically overcome this situation?
Yeah. And
You
it's
know,
not even like, I mean, I heard somebody say recently, who says that's a failure? Who
right.
defined the failure? Are you? Is it society? Is it social media? Who decided that it was a failure? Nothing's a failure. It's always an opportunity for improvement. And the Lean Sigma teaching that I did in leadership training was, OFIs are the opportunities for improvement, not the failures, not the mistakes, they're opportunities for us to learn and grow. So
Mhm.
that's so true. The other thing I wanted to talk about too, I just wanted to touch real quickly, is that not only does the changing our mind and connecting it with the gratitude, not only does that, change who we are, it literally changes ourselves. It literally changes the way our body functions. You know, all the everything in life, everything in our world, in our physical body and our 3D world that we live in, everything has an energetic signature. Sunlight has a signature. I've recorded a couple CDs and I can see my sound of my voice. It's a energetic frequency. I can see it on the computer. Everything has a frequency and everything vibrates. You know, this is what a rainbow is. This is what light and sound and everything in the world around us, everything, and emotions have a frequency.
Mhm.
And our cells, every cell in our body responds to those frequencies. So if love, joy, peace is like this really amazing wide frequency, shame and fear and anger are like really low frequencies. So if we're always vibrating down here, our body is, and our cells in our body are going to respond in that way. And think about sympathetic nervous system versus parasympathetic nervous system. Sympathetic nervous system, that's fight and flight. The lion is chasing me. I got to get the heck out of Dodge. I got to run. We don't have time for our body to heal. Our digestion just stops because we don't need to have energy to digest our food. We need to have energy for our muscles to run faster and get away. That's
Mhm.
what stress does. Those are all low. Sympathetic nervous system is low energy, kind of vibrating kind of stuff. If we're up here in love and peace and joy and everything is like hunky-dory and nothing's the matter and we're vibrating at this amazing high frequency, that is parasympathetic. That's rest and digest, peace and at ease. Everything is just going along smoothly and things are running fine. We digest our food well. Our blood sugar is more stable. We have energy to meet all of our needs. We think clearly. Our cells work better. Our
Mhm.
mitochondrial function is better. Our bodies just, we literally can change. I have read more than one story of someone who healed themselves of not just physical diseases, but like broken bones, literally changed it and healed their body with nothing more than just changing their thoughts and actually imagining their body working the way it was supposed to and feeling the gratitude for it. Literally has the power to, when you vibrate at that high frequency, the energy that our cells have start to respond to this better frequency and they start to behave in that way instead of the lower, slow, real low, not so high frequency things like shame and guilt and fear. So it's not just about it, it's a combination of all the things. It's not just about choosing to think a different thought. It's not just about thinking the different thought and feeling the feeling. It literally changes how we vibrate, and that affects our physical body's performance and how our cells, I've talked about this. You fix your cell, you're going to get well, because the cell is like the lowest thing. It's the lowest part of every part of who we are is our cells. Cells
Mhm.
put together our tissues put together our organs put together our systems, and all those systems put together make up you. So if we can fix our cells, we can fix our whole body. So if our cells are operating at a much higher frequency and they're responding to the higher frequency and the vibration of love, joy, peace, and all the gratitude and thankfulness, they are literally going to start to work better. And our body is going to start to heal just by doing this. So think about what it would be to have the combined effect where you're thinking better thoughts, you're having more gratitude, you are turning your attention to the positive emotions like love and joy, and you're moving your body and you're choosing healthy food and you're taking nutritional supplements. Wow, what it would be like amazing, and then the things that you do like music and all the different things that we do, meditation or deep breathing and all the other like alternative modalities that we all put into practice. Think about doing it all together. Oh my gosh, we have the ability. And if I do it and you do it, think about how us collectively we can literally change how society operates, because all of us are just operating at a much higher. It's like I was just upgrading my husband's computer yesterday. So we had to like upgrade the iOS, we had to upgrade Windows, we had to do all this, you know, like we got rid of the computer with the low amount of RAM and the low core Intel core processor. And now we're like man, we're on light speed now compared to where we were. That's what we do in our bodies when we start to upgrade all this stuff. We like operate at such a higher level. And what if we all had high-speed computers? Like, what if we all operated in that? Think about all the peace in the world instead of what we see now, because everybody's attention is focused on the wars and the hatred. What if we just all focus on love and operating in a higher level towards one another and just individually and then collectively, what could we do? We could change the world. Wouldn't that be amazing?
Be really amazing. The world would certainly be a much better place, and we're right at the top of the hour. And so I know this has been a wonderful conversation. And
Yeah.
the last thing I want to leave people out there is I love baseball. A quote by Babe Ruth, and he had said, "It's hard to beat a person who never gives up."
Yep.
And it sounds so simple, but it's true. A person who just continually endures and perseveres, it's really hard to beat a person who never gives up.
Yeah.
And you only have to have one person to believe in yourself, and that's you.
Yeah. And don't
Yeah.
let the things that you've heard other people say and the things that you've gone through, don't let that become, the thing that determines what you do.
Mm,
If you listen to my story long enough, go to my website. There's a little blip of my story on there, but it doesn't even come close to telling all the things that I've had to struggle to overcome in my life. I just, I knew that there was something more for me to do, and I just kept going after it. And I will tell you, it's gotten easier and easier. The struggles that I face are bigger and bigger. The trials aren't as small as they used to be, but it's easier and easier for me to face them because I choose to keep my eyes pointed upward, to the higher calling that I know, and the love that I know God has for me, but also because I believe in myself and I love myself more. And therefore, I'm able to do the things that I need to do to show up as a better version of myself so that I can influence and have an impact on other people's lives, because that's really what I want to do. I want to make a difference. I want to see, I have a heart to see people healthy and well and living the best life possible for them. And it really just takes, you know, putting one foot in front of the other. Some days it's easier than others. The days that I was, couldn't hardly get out of bed, I just said, I can get up and I can do this in the morning. And I just, I took it one day at a time. My mom used to tell me all the time when I was in school, you can't, I would read the syllabus and it would be like so much stuff, I would get overwhelmed. And she's like, Teresa, you can't eat the elephant all in one bite. You take it one bite at a time. I was like, okay, I can do that one day at a time, one task at a time. So if all you do today is write down 5 things you're thankful for, or all you do today is choose to respond and not react to when somebody cuts you off in traffic, you at least started with that. Give yourself a pat on the back, give yourself a high five and say, go you, do it again. You can do it. I believe in you.
100%. That's really good. Yeah, that's a great way to close out. And I mean, hey, just anchor yourself and just know to keep pushing forward and never give up. I mean, you're not a product of your circumstance, you're a product of your decisions.
Mm,
And it
so
takes
true.
effort or decision to begin to say, no, today I'm going to make a change.
Yeah. And please follow us, on social media. We love to do these conversations every Friday. We try to put something out. We try to put positive content. There's more good things to come. We would just love for you to join our family. Really, I mean it when I say that I want to make a difference in people's lives. I want to be a positive impact, and I want to see people, just grow and heal and become whole and healthy. And so it really helps if you join our community, like it, share it. If something resonated with you, please share it with others. Even if it's just a little blurb of what we said, it would be amazing. We would really be so grateful for that.
Absolutely. And check out foundationsandwellness.com and our social handles, Foundations and Wellness, across the different platforms, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and obviously YouTube.
Yeah.
So like and subscribe. Thank you so much. Teresa, it was awesome. It was a great conversation. I'm sure we could go into a part two on this, and I'd love to do so.
Yeah.
And you have a blessed day. Thank you for
All
being
right.
here.
You too. Thanks.